Hello, the story I have for you today is called Martin's Big Words. It is by Dorian Rappaport and illustrated by Brian Collier. This is a true-to-life story about Martin Luther King. Do you know who that is? You can learn about him in this book. Everywhere in Martin's hometown, he saw the signs, white only. His mother said these signs were in all southern cities and towns in the United States. Every time Martin read the words, he felt bad, until he remembered what his mother told him. You are as good as anyone. This says white only. So when Martin was growing up in the United States, he lived during a time where white people and black people could not be together. They had separate schools, they had separate water fountains, they had to sit in different parts of the bus, and a lot of white people thought that black people were not as good. In church, Martin sang hymns, he read from the Bible, he listened to his father preach. These words made him feel good. When I grow up, I'm going to get big words too. So his father was a minister, and he had a church. Martin grew up. He became a minister like his father, and he used the big words he had heard as a child, from his parents and from the Bible. Everyone can be great. There he was. He taught people about Jesus and how to be like Jesus and to love God. He studied the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. He learned how the Indian nation won freedom without firing a gun. Martin said love when others said hate. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. There he is. So when he went to school, he knew that the way that black people were treated in America was wrong, and he wanted to figure out how to change it. And he thought that his way was going to help, and he did lots of things called protests and marches to tell other people what it was like. He said together when others said separate. He said peace when others said war. Sooner or later, all the people of the world will have to discover a way to live together. Martin didn't want anybody to go to war, and he tried to help all of the people, especially the poor people. In 1955, on a cold December day in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks was coming home from work. A white man told her to get up from her seat on the bus so he could sit. She said no, and she was arrested. Montgomery's black citizens learned of her arrest. It made them angry. They decided not to ride the buses until they could sit anywhere they wanted. So black people had to sit in the back, and if a white person wanted their seat, they had to get up. And all the people in Montgomery knew that that was wrong, and they all got together to try to change it. They said, we won't give our money to the bus company until they fix it. And the bus company lost a lot of money and didn't have anybody riding their buses. For 381 days, that's more than a year, they walked to work and school and church. They walked in rain and cold and blistering heat. Martin walked with them and talked with them and sang with them and prayed with them, until the white city leaders had to agree they could sit anywhere they wanted. When the history books are written, someone will say, there lived black people who had the courage to stand up for their rights. So it took a whole year for the bus people to change their mind. It took a lot of time. In the next 10 years, black Americans all over the South protested for equal rights. Martin walked with them and talked with them and sang with them and prayed with them. White ministers told them to stop. Mayors and governors and police chiefs and judges ordered them to stop, but they kept on marching. Wait. For years I have heard the word wait. We have waited more than 340 years for our rights. There they are. So sometimes the people who did these marches would get arrested and go to jail, but they knew that this was a bad law, that black and white people had to be apart, and so they worked to change it. They were jailed and beaten and murdered, but they kept on marching. Some black Americans wanted to fight back with their fists. Martin convinced them not to, by reminding them of the power of love. Love is the key to the problems of the world. Many white Southerners hated and feared Martin's words. Some of them threatened to kill him and his family. His house was bombed and his brother's house was bombed, but he refused to stop. Remember, if I am stopped, this movement will not be stopped because God is with this movement. He knew that it wasn't just all about him, that it was about, he believed that God was helping him and there were lots of other people working together. And he said, even though these people want to hurt me, I will not stop. The marches continued. More and more Americans listened to Martin's words. He shared his dreams and filled them with hope. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. After 10 years of protests, the lawmakers in Washington voted to end segregation. The white-only signs in the South came down. They had to work for 10 years. But you know, those white-only signs had been up for a very long time. They had to change a lot of people's minds and make them see that black people are good, just as good as white people. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. cared about all Americans. He cared about people all over the world, and people all over the world admired him. In 1964, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He won it because he taught others to fight with words, not fists. So during this time, there was a war going on in a country called Vietnam, and Martin Luther King knew that to be at war with other people was not good. So he kept telling people to stop. Martin went wherever people needed help. In April 1968, he went to Memphis, Tennessee. He went to help garbage collectors who were on strike. If you're on strike, that means you stop the work that you're doing because you want something to change, like maybe you're not safe or you're not getting paid enough. Martin walked with them and talked with them and sang with them and prayed with them. On his second day there, he was shot. He died. So people did not like what Martin was doing. There were some people who were very powerful who wanted things to stay the way that they were, stay the same, that white people were better. And so they did what's called assassination. Assassination is when you kill somebody on purpose. And they thought if they killed Martin Luther King, then people would stop trying to fix things. But do you think that it worked? Do you have friends who have different color skin than you? Do you see those signs that say whites only anymore? Martin's big words are alive for us today. Freedom, peace, together. Love, I have a dream. So Martin Luther King taught us a lot about how to work together, and he did a lot for the people in the South and the African American people. But you know what? Even though we don't have whites only signs anymore, there are still people who think that black people are not as good or shouldn't get paid as much, and we know that that's wrong. So whenever you can think about Martin Luther King and think about how can you help people who are different than you, and how can you help the people who need help. I loved reading this story. I love Martin Luther King Jr. because he helps me know that even if something is a law, if it's wrong, then I should do what I can to change it. I'll read to you later. Bye.